Good evening. Thank you for spending your Friday evening with us. I'm Barb Jennis, Poet Laureate of Ridgefield, Connecticut, and I have the pleasure to welcome you to the third of 4 Poet Laureates Out Loud virtual readings scheduled for National Poetry Month. Tonight, you're going to hear 5 amazing Connecticut poets: Joan Kwon of Milford, Michael Lepore of Glastonbury, Tony Paticchio of Ashford, Adam Rush of Brookfield, and Pegi Deitz Shea of Vernon. Each of these poets has been appointed by their community to share their passion for poetry with their neighbors. And I like to think of us as essential workers, spreading the joy, imagination, and healing of poetry. The readers this evening are all members of the Connecticut Coalition of Poets Laureate, the mission of which is to be a resource for communities wishing to appoint their own local poet laureate, and also to support the efforts of those individuals once they have been selected. We're really glad you're here, and I hope that you'll type your reactions and comments in the comment section of your screen throughout the evening. Feel free to comment on some of the lines from the poems that have intrigued you the most. And then around 7:50, we'll pause to respond to as many questions as we can. So moving on, let me introduce tonight's first poet. The Poet Laureate of Milford, Joan Kwon Glass, is poetry co-editor for West Trestle Review and a poetry reader at Rogue Agent. A biracial Korean American who grew up in Michigan and South Korea, Joan's work explores trauma, grief, memory, motherhood, and recovery. Joan's poems have appeared or are upcoming in Kissing Dynamite, The Subnivian, Lumiere Review, Rust and Moth, Tramp Set, Rattle, Swim, Mom Egg Review, and many other publications. Her work has been featured in the series Poetry as It Ought to Be and on Wednesday Night Poetry. Joan's chapbook, How to Make Pancakes for a Dead Boy, is forthcoming from Harbor Editions in 2022. And when I post it in the chat, you'll be able to see where you can see Joan's website and read her work. So welcome, Joan. Oh, there you go.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Well, thanks for joining us. I know you're also a teacher. You're on break this week?
I am. It has been glorious.
I bet it has. Well, let me get out of your way here. Thank you for coming.
Okay, thank you, Barb. I'm going to be reading a series of poems that all of which are in my upcoming book with Harbor Editions. As Barb explained, the name of the chapbook is How to Make Pancakes for a Dead Boy. And as you can probably tell by the title, I need to give a content warning for the poems that I'm going to read because they do address grief, they address the loss of a child, and specifically the loss of my 11-year-old nephew to suicide in 2017. So if you want to opt out for the next 10 minutes and come back, that's completely understandable, but they are very intense poems and can be difficult to listen to. The first poem is called Locked Door, Open Door, and this poem appeared in Cross and Crow Keys literary magazine. Locked door, open door. A locked door, the day he died. A plan is unfolding. He is on YouTube looking up how to shoot a pistol. Girls are conjuring ghosts. He is writing a suicide note. An open door that night in my dreams swung wide open onto a cottage incandescent. His footsteps so much lighter now. His laughter 1,000 bells unbound. I take the doors in my house off the hinges, so when the girls conjure ghosts, maybe he will find me. The second poem is called What I Regret, and This poem also will appear in the book, and it talks about the summers that I spent with my children in Michigan, where we would all convene, which is where my sister lived with her children. What I regret. Every summer, we spent a week at the lake. You and your cousins caught turtles and minnows before dinner, and they squatted enraptured over the creatures you'd found. They stroked the turtles' backs, picked them up when they wandered too far. When they stuck their whole hands in the bucket, giggling as the fish flurried through their fingers, you turned to me and said quietly, "Maybe we should set them free." On movie nights, you shaped a bag of gummy raspberries into a pouch, held it open on your lap, and waited as your cousins took forever to get settled. They bickered about which pillow they needed, what spot on the couch they'd claimed, who had a bigger scoop of ice cream in their bowl, how it wasn't fair, and could they have more? You never asked for more of anything, not even when your life depended on it. I should have filled your arms with a blooming bushel of your favorite candy, found you a spot close to me on the couch, and asked you what movie made you the happiest. I should have summoned 1,000 turtles just so that you could let them go. That last Christmas of your life, all I gave you was an Amazon gift card. I should have asked you, what do you dream of holding? Before it's too late, tell me what your heart wants. The next poem is the title poem for the book, How to Make Pancakes for a Dead Boy. And I think, if you're a parent or you spend time with children, we've all made children pancakes. And this poem was inspired by just the memory of making breakfast for my nephew, and his name was Frankie. How to Make Pancakes for a Dead Boy. First, crack the egg into a sinkhole of grief. Measure the ingredients, then stir until the lumps no longer resemble bullets. Try not to see him standing at your side, grinning at age 6, front teeth missing, pulling on your sleeve to whisper with a grin, "Auntie, please add extra chocolate chips." Run the electric beaters until you can no longer hear his voice as a toddler or the snap and boom of his first and last shot. Pour the batter onto the griddle. While the pancakes rise, read his suicide note again. Try to make sense of it and get nowhere. Cut the pancakes into bite-sized pieces. Sweeten the plate as you scream. Hard to read. The next poem is called Grief in 4 Seasons. And I wrote this poem this past year, standing in my kitchen, just looking out the window. I think a lot of us did a lot of looking out of windows this past year, and just remembering and thinking about the different ways that I've grieved, depending on what season it was. Grief in 4 Seasons. Winter. Empty bird feeder. Mounds of snow sealed by ice. My son's footprints like animal tracks across the yard. Christmas video, Facebook memories. Your voice. Your voice. Traffic from the nearby overpass blows by like an Arctic wind. Spring. Yesterday, we found your Nintendo DS. you designed avatars for all of us. I play your games in bed and dream in pixels. Outside, flowers bloom everywhere, and though I've waited so long for them, I am happiest in the dark, zooming in on your smiling cartoon face. Summer. 2 mallards bathe in our pool. A mother skunk wobbles across the yard with her babies. Animals suddenly unafraid, everything bravest before the light fades. The air is thick with gnats at dusk. I hold my breath. Fall. This September, you would have been 15. I finally put your harmonica in a drawer. My children never seem to grow tired of making s'mores. Their faces are smeared with chocolate. Giddy and marshmallow feral. In the morning, I empty the fire pit. The ashes cling to everything. This is the last poem that I'll read, and it's called Chuseok, which is a Korean word, and it means autumn celebration. Today, my uncle and his wife will visit my grandparents' tomb in Korea the way they do every year. They will leave trays stacked high with persimmons and powdered tok, then say a Christian prayer as the wind stirs everything into wakefulness. On Chuseok, we remember the rise of the Silla, kingdom of gold crowns with jade carved and dangling like grapes. We celebrate 3 centuries of unity, North and South, dead and living together. We salute the rising moon. I think of my sisters and her sons' graves 7,400 miles from my grandparents' tomb in Troy, Michigan. Headstones flush to the ground. Every time it rains, the water floats trash down from the street nearby. A cigarette box, crumpled Burger King cups, plastic bags torn like the skin of ravaged prey. If I could go back, I would claim a summit. I would build them a tomb. I would set crowns upon their heads. Every year, I'd bring gifts and invite the wind into their tomb, where the skeletal jaws hang wide open, forever trying to say that one last thing. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Wow, Joan, just devastatingly beautiful, beautiful poems. Did you find that writing them was a healing process for you?
Absolutely. I'm not actually sure how I would have survived the last few years without being able to write. I mean, that's poetry. Poetry heals. It's
Yes.
necessary.
Yes. Well, beautiful work. Thank you for sharing with us. I know it's
Thank you.
difficult to read still, I'm sure. So, but beautiful work. Thank you. Oh boy. All right. So next we have Dr. Michael Lepore, who is a retired orthodontist and award-winning poet laureate of Glastonbury, Connecticut. He is the author of 5 books of poetry, among them Forgotten Heroes, Vietnam Voices, which received the bronze medal in the poetry category of the 2018 awards program of the Military Writers Society of America, the MWSA. Moral Injury, gold medal winner in the 2017 MWSA Awards, and My Inner Eye, released in September of 2018. Lepore's 5th book, Impaired, was just released on March 12th of this year. The collection's title poem, Impaired, received first prize in the 2019 Connecticut Poetry Competition. So we'll welcome Michael. Hi, Dr.
Barb,
Lepore.
Barb, thank you very much.
Oh,
I'm
let
happy
me
to
get out of
be
your.
here among
We're
all
glad.
these fine people.
Yeah, it's always all three of the weeks that we've had this series so far have just been so different and so amazing. Some very amazing talent here in Connecticut. I can't believe I'm repeating the same adjectives. I'm a poet. I shouldn't do that. And the bad adjectives at that. So take it away, Michael.
Thank you, Barb. At the end of last month, on the 29th of March, we celebrated Welcome Home Vietnam Veterans Day. And in honor of that day, I would like to share with you some poems from my latest book, which Barb mentioned in her glowing introduction. The book is entitled Impaired, The Continuing Crisis for Vietnam Veterans. Poems in this collection provide glimpses into the heart and minds of Vietnam War combat veterans, men who were once vital and strong, now facing the reality of age and approaching death. Some of the veterans in these poems are at war with themselves. Some return to the country where their youth was lost, and some fear for the future. As in real life, there are seldom happy endings to these stories. They are not anti-war poems, nor are they pro-war poems. They just tell it the way it is and the way it was. Silence of the Heart. This 80-year-old veteran, worn and proud, dreams of truths beyond the ties of prejudice, of disagreement, unbound by restraints of obsession. In silence, his heart is aware of secret desires. Ears long to hear sounds of knowledge, of purpose. Aging eyes search the heavens for meaning. He listens deeply for sounds of understanding before age lays its hand upon the heart, and all that remains is aching emptiness. Where the hard mask of self hides a soul bruised and corrupted by war's inhumanity and hate, mindful of boulders of wrong on both sides, overshadowing pebbles of right, needs to know that his journey was honorable, for justice, freedom from the oppressor, reckless of the cost to himself, of deeds more rewarding than the bleeding scar of ceaseless war. A Way Out. Dreams of a girl he once knew, auburn hair infused with airy perfume, soft blue-green eyes and contagious smile that showcased the war beaming from inside. They walked hand in hand, made promises that neither could keep. When he returned from Nam, things had changed. She loved another. He was not the same. Short-tempered and suspicious, he drove her away. He dreams of her often with lingering thoughts that fade as fragrant memories. He imagines a hero's welcome he did not receive, of youthful pleasures that pass without fulfillment. Mourns for dreams that have died along the way, that drift like pallid phantoms along the currents of a turbulent past. He continues to dream, though time and change have dulled his clarity. Hope and love, bruised and tarnished, slowly succumb to defeat. He feels alone in a world not of his own design, without the tools to rebuild. Before him, a dark door opens, emitting rays of warmth and glow, of angelic silhouettes indistinct that carry a tune of youthful mirth. He is drawn forward into this light, where earthly thoughts wait to be reborn and old dreams finally come true. Demise of a worn-down friend. He looks down on a small, plain marble tablet that keeps his friend from becoming extinct. They served together in '68. He died in the service of his country, not in the highlands of Con Thien or in the steamy jungles of Quezon, he came to rest in less exotic surroundings. Like many of his comrades, he ended up broken, and alone in a filthy back alley, reeking of cheap whiskey, malnutrition, and non-existent hygiene. For every veteran whose life force was ebbed onto the field of battle, a dozen or more went home with their souls forever ripped apart. His friend had been shot down by family, friends, and even police in an attempt to find out who he was or what he became. He sought help, but no help was available. He sank into a mire of drugs and alcohol, dead by his own hand. His demise began in the jungles of Kwon province some 50 years ago. And so he passes, seeming to have failed, weary from the long fight, not against men, but against red tape and powers, worn down by the heavy hours of lonely struggles, of hurt nearer to his heart than he would ever say. After the dance, the rocker on the back porch causes the floorboards to groan under his weight. He methodically gnaws his nails and listens for sounds of loneliness. In the breathless air outside the house, he sees muted shapes in shrubs. Not the brothers lost in battle. They are in Vietnam. But old men who died a slow, natural death. He prays for no more war. He can still hear the soft, quiet, persistent thud that never ceases, those whispering guns. Thoughts he silenced all day again return to frighten him. He never thought to spend more time with family. His son had grown up with a father who could not tell him how much he cared. His wife had devoted much of her life living with a person incapable of expressing any emotion except frequent outbursts of rage. He never wanted to expose them to the horrors of his mind. He now sits alone, waits for darkness to hide his tears. Gentle rain. He sits on the edge of the bed, waits for his next fall. Tell me how long I've got. The face in the mirror offers no answer. Hands unable to steady his body. Never will. His arms have mutinied. Fingers fidget like 10 hyperactive imps. Peeing in a bottle is not his cup of tea. Neither is falling. Ears hone in on the anticipated footsteps of keeper of cabinet keys to offer relief from the opiate ache from his moaning, wounded legs. She is late. Through the half-open window, he looks into the night. Could not see stars hiding behind wandering clouds. Begins to hear rain rustling through the dark. A soft, gentle rain soaks the green lawn and massages drooping roses. Not harsh rain that follows thunder, but a trickling peace softly and slowly washing his life away. His final battle, the coronavirus pandemic, March 2020. My mind sees him standing in moist green Vietnam mist, a real leader through endless number of bloody ambushes. We had each other's back. In that terrible thunder of war, we trained to quell our enemy's rage, leave him twisted on an ugly no-name hill. Today we fight a demon we cannot see, hear, or kill. Brought in on a stretcher, wearing a mask of deep purple, coughing like a compulsive smoker. Deep gargling, labored inhale, body unable to perform its duties. He laid before my helpless sight, guttering, choking, drowning, his face twisted in pain. An unseen foe had taken him by surprise. His chest heaves in a futile search for more oxygen as the invader grows in strength and number. from deep within his throat, the gargling of froth-filled lungs. Robbed of the ability to speak, he now lies as if in a stupor. I see within his eye the silent glimmer of goodbye. That's all I have for you guys today.
Oh,
My time is up.
oh, Michael, so powerful. Have you ever worked with a veterans group in terms of writing poems with them?
Yes, I have. They're kind of difficult to deal with because they don't talk much and they're really afraid to let their feelings out. So I try to write for them and say what they want to say, but aren't able to do it. But yes, and I'm also involved in the Marine Corps League detachment here in town, and we do a lot with the new or younger people coming from deployment. And what I didn't say is that veteran suicide is a very real and troubling thing. I think the latest is 22 veterans commit suicide every day. And it's disappointing to see the young ones do it too, and not even know that it's going to happen. But we try what we can.
Right. And probably a lot of that is because they feel they can't express what they're feeling. So,
True.
wow. Well, wonderful work. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Barb.
Okay, so next we have Anthony Paticchio is a retired attorney and Ashford, Connecticut's inaugural poet laureate. His poems have appeared or are forthcoming in Feed Literary Magazine, Hedgehog Poetry, and Black Bough Poetry. So let me bring up Tony here. Hi, Tony.
Hi, Barb.
Now, tell us a little bit more about yourself. What are you still working? Are you?
I'm not working at all as an attorney. I'm on our town's clean energy task force, and I am on the Region 19 E.O. Smith Board of Education.
Wonderful.
And on their Equity, Diversity, and Justice Committee, which was formed this year.
Yes.
And I do some other volunteering. My wife drags me into all kinds of things. But
we tend to do that. Well, good for you. All good work, it sounds like. So take it away.
all right, thanks, Barb, for organizing and hosting this series. I'm new to this group, but I'm honored to be joining tonight's group reading our poems. I'm going to read some short poems this evening, and as Barb indicated, most of these have appeared in the ones I'm going to read in Black Bough Poetry and Hedgehog Poetry Press. Both of these are located in the UK, for what that's worth. But at any rate, the first two poems I'm going to read were actually in an anthology that came out by Black Bough in late last year, and it was based on or inspired by Robert McFarlane's book Underland. And I don't know if anyone's read that, but it's a series of essays and meditations on the earth beneath us. There's essays on networks of interconnected tree roots, on caves, on underground rivers, on sewers, on mines, places of burial and rest. So the first poem I'm going to read is titled Day to Night. It spills itself in whirlpools, pouring out the sun's acid yellow hue, filling the void with orange, red, evening starling blue. Extinction colors, born in brewing darkness, settling on a vague, receding earth, grown silent against circling flights of birds stitching the horizon shut, battening in the last green touch of day. Let loose, dusk shudders into night. The next poem is titled Return from the Underworld. And I'm often asked about two references in this poem, so I'm going to go ahead and address them right now. Cora in this poem is another name for Persephone. And Enna's plain is the plain in Sicily where, in some versions of the Cora Persephone story, Hades emerged from the underworld, abducted Cora and brought her back to the underworld to be his queen. This is titled Return from the Underworld. A splintering bit, a piercing eye, steals the hard-veined living ore, lying deep in Cora's lair, where broken, bared, it harbors no memory of a time before Hades split the earth on Anna's plain. Next, I'm going to read what I'm calling an accidental sequence of poems. Accidental because I didn't write them as a sequence, but when I was putting together poems to read tonight, these all came together as a sequence that begins in January and extends through mid-year in June. So first one is titled First Morning Dream. If at first light on a January morning, I push my fingers through the skim ice set in a flower pot left at the back of the kitchen window sill, I might yet touch soft earth beneath. Next is titled Becoming. Sometime in March or April, the Mount Hope, near its headwaters down below the house, turns river again, grows loud each day, spills its winter stream in a full-on, cold, clear silver river rush, threads a new watercourse drawn across a thick-grown marsh that once was a beaver pond, pours out through a rock channel carved in the ruin of an old button mill dam, and finds its way. And Barb, this next one is called Finding Crows, when there's a crow behind me. Like black needles threading wet green tree stalks, descending on shadows of past years' fallen leaves within a key of light that tempers any evidence of design. Like bell drops rung against the ever-staring sun, peeling in and out of the cover of showering clouds. This is titled We Are Riding the Paris Pike, May 24th, 1987. The Paris Pike is the old colonial, or it might be even a pre-colonial road that runs between Lexington, Kentucky and Paris, Kentucky, which is the county seat of Bourbon County, and it's in the heart of bluegrass and horse country. And the date, May 24th, 1987, is the day that my wife Susan and I were married. So we are riding the Paris Pike, May 24th, 1987. We are riding the Paris Pike back to Lexington, trailing a cast tin bucket, unaware of the racket sparking in our wake. Left behind, the morning's first roses cut in Nell Collins' garden, the gathered daughters, their daughters and sons, the noonday shower settling in the heat, all that brought us here this late May afternoon. Your still deciding smile wakens me now. All manner of things changed, though not this day. We are standing together, curious, holding hands, listening. In a near hallway, Kitty is singing quietly to Nell, my old Kentucky home. It is no more than a whisper at the center of all the days deciding. Later, on the highway, drawing an ancient bucket toward our lives together, I hear only the whisper of our promise. Sparks fly from the pavement, surround us. We are on our way. And the last poem I'm going to read tonight is titled Out of Time. And it appeared in an anthology put out by Hedgehog Poetry Press titled Looking Out, Peering In. And for me, it was looking into ourselves and out from beyond those small, confined spaces we lived in for the past year. Out of time. My thoughts tangle no cause. My voice affords no refuge. My arms embrace no one. This is how we live now, close to the bone, alone, all out of reasons for answers, all out of time for love. Still, at evenings, sometimes in June, just at the moment when fireflies first appear in the near darkness like blinking stars suddenly close at hand, it is possible to imagine a traveler in space, boundless in the deep surrounding blue, bearing towards some distant homing beacon, eyes wide open to what lies ahead, with all the time in the world. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tony. Wow. Now, very spare language, which was surprising for me with your background as a lawyer. I mean, it doesn't seem like, it seems like a non sequitur. Have you been writing all the years that you were working as a lawyer?
Yes. Probably since my late teens, but of the poems I read tonight, most of them were written in the last couple of years, although the one about our wedding day I wrote about close to 20 years ago.
That was beautiful. That beautiful work. Well, thank you. Very lovely, lovely poems.
Thank you.
Thanks for reading. Okay. So next we have Adam Rush, who is the Poet Laureate of Brookfield, Connecticut. He's an established spoken word artist. Adam is the author of 2 poetry books, Obscene and Trench Madness, and 2 spoken word music fusion albums, Adam Rush and Generator. His poetry is greatly influenced by Jack Kerouac and poet Walt Whitman. Adam has performed in New York and Connecticut at Acoustic Cafe, River Outpost Brewing Company, Cafe 9, and Yorktown Grill. So please welcome Adam Rush. Hi, Adam.
Hello, how are you doing?
Very well, thanks.
Great.
I'm looking forward to hearing your work. It sounds intriguing to have that. Are you going to do some music for us too?
I don't know. I mean, I'm just going to do it solo this time, but I can definitely let some people know where you can just listen to with the music. So.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Oh, comrades, oh, companions, can we make these words out in the dark? My tears are spilling out of this poetry. A shot of whiskey, the sour-tasting spirit of Coleridge. The air sweeps over hills surrounding these sacred plains. We built them with gentle whispers and merging passion. We fell out of the backyards of our youth into the decorations of beauty from the fire in our minds. Oh, comrades, oh, companions, grab the reins of this chain and breathe. We gave up on the lies from the voices in the dark. We grabbed a vision of penetration. In every wall levied abused angels. Oh, comrades, oh, companions, oh, saviors, oh, false captains vomiting on deck. Sing with me below the mass. Youth struggling, a revised image of rebellion in a world unforgiving. Oh, comrades, oh, companions, bear your words on my flesh. Let me love even in the dim moonlight. Shadows can illuminate the mind. We are destined to walk in ancient footsteps, the common ground, where we process the narrow prayer of poetry. Let us live within the specter of broad view. Oh, comrades, oh, companions, grab the reins of your chain and break free. A torchlit shelter, expressions and features of a dying flame, of a passion locked in the archives, of Blake, Keats, Whitman reciting to the stars. O comrades, O companions, a mind not distracted. We held our spirit steady through our emotions. Even death could not crack us. Most of my poetry can be categorized between beats, having a little bit to do with the music and the voice inside yourself, visions, memories, and dreams. And this is a memory. When I penetrate that doorway, memories will flood into me, dreams will surface. I'll feel the cold heat from the old kerosene. I'll see the beaten furniture. I'll walk the curved stairs to my attic, to my room. I'll remember birth, all those blind kittens crawling to the corner of my bed. I'll remember death in the wall by sledgehammer. When I fall through the cracks that first scarred my sleep, the nightmares that awakened me, the pain that startled me, seeing myself in the mirror, I'll visualize all those roses and morning glories that bloomed and surrounded my backyard landscape. I'll lay the rose next to the rotting apple tree where I buried those blind kittens when they learned to see. When I'm done seeing myself again in that mirror that broke so many times, I will escape free of the past and never go back. This is like a little bit, this is a dream. It's kind of a reoccurring dream in my life. It's called Woodman. Put him through the ringer again, skin his soul, till it bleeds a trail for you to follow. Run him through the meat grinder, release the lion from his den, pin him for tonight's feast. Hang the phoenix for a laugh, break his heart, till it bleeds a track for you to be hollow. Your voodoo dolls won't work on me this time. Got her ringer on mute. His resurrection. No surprise, 'cause I burn. I am Woodman, and I burn. Put him through the ringer again. Release his soul till it sinks the whale for you to descend. Run him through the meat grinder. Release the lion from his den. Pin him for tonight's feast. Mark the phoenix to form. Break his heart again till it bleeds a track for you to be hollow. For you to ascend. Suspicious scholars of the solar bird, sundogs refract light, reflect on spite, a poet without a crown. Got her ringer on mute. My resurrection, no surprise, 'cause I burn. I am Woodman, and I burn. This one I would categorize like as a beat. It's called Free Will in Brewster, New York, and I like to give a shout out to Yorktown Grill because those guys always enjoyed this one almost as good as I Can Take a Punch. It's kind of an interesting poem that I think gives me a lot of thought about inspiration and what that means. Get in the car. Anticipate the roads with your eyes. Don't forget to notice people degrading each other. Don't forget to call. She would be the first to see you. No glory when you get there. Get in the car. He will only bite the roads, leave you shaped in his seat. Don't forget to pray for the next caution sign. She will be first to say, no prize for first place. Get in the car. Only if you do first. Stop stumbling around with your packaged New York medicine. Don't forget to mention you left your identification. She will be the first to initiate modification. no police report. Get in the car. Hands where I can see them. Legs pike the floor. Don't forget to amend your statement to reflect what they found in your ashtray. She will be the first to revoke bail. No love at the end of this rope. Get in the car. You paid the man. Under the table. No pressure needed, an exercise in free will in Brewster, New York. Railroad to change. Pick and risk yourself. No one cares if you fail to create. And as previously before, my name is Adam Rush, and I'm the Poet Laureate of Brookfield, Connecticut, the inaugural Poet Laureate of Brookfield. And it was a really interesting process and a really great thing. I hope more towns get involved in bringing more Poet Laureates here. And I want to thank Barb and everybody that performed tonight. It was amazing stuff. And I'm going to finish it well with one more poem here I have left over here. But I do want to say that you can also check out my poetry at www.adamrush.org. You can also check it out on YouTube. My name's Adam Rush. It's ATOM. It is a pseudonym for me. I try to be a Rush through my poetry. And I want to, you can check that. You can check on my YouTube website. It has a lot of videos. Also Adam Rush, ATOM. And I'm also on with the music that I do with several different bands in the area. Actually doing a show coming up April 24th in Yorktown with my friend Mike Cesario, where I'll be sitting in with him. All right, I'm going to do this real quick then. This one goes out to my friend Rob, who passed just recently, and I want to thank him for supporting my poetry. It's called Brooklyn. A skip through Brooklyn, shadow waiters cast new light on old surroundings. Into memory we restrain over tacos and wine, the glisten of holy art. A dream through Brooklyn. Memories like these are not meant to hurt and love at the same frequency. We want to connect to every block, every unit on this dynamic street. A memory through Brooklyn. Bathtubs scattered on the street, frozen roots, face tilted, sad eyes to static traffic. Leaving is living, is learning. A vision through Brooklyn, lives packed and rearranged to hold, then sacked. Into coma we breathe under deadline for concept. A levee through Brooklyn, extended selves in every window. It keeps a beat in these lowly lives, immersed in washed brains. New roots, ready to burst, make impact. We soar through Brooklyn, faithful artists once, trashed on the street now, fabled roots, scribbled by hand from the mad poet. A siege in Brooklyn. We merge under express thunder, trapped by one more light. A way to remember everything that stood. Thanks a lot.
Wow. What a great delivery, Adam. Very, you can tell you have a lot of spoken word experience. Now, what do you think is the percentage of your work that is spoken word versus music?
You know, I think most of the time what I'll do is I'll write it as a poem maybe first and then write it as a song. You know, I really feel like there's really a fine line between the two. You know, when I study the Romantics, you know, William Blake, it was Songs of Innocence. And there's a reason it's Songs of Innocence. It's meant to be spoken. And what I'll do too is sometimes if I'm doing a new musician and they have no ideas, I'll be like, just listen to me. And they end up coming up with their own interesting stuff. I want it to be as exciting for them as it is for me. So I want to inspire them as much as they inspire me. So I say, just listen and you'll come up with something that'll be amazing. Yeah.
A very, very much a beat feeling to it in that respect, you know. Which is
I was definitely inspired a lot by the beats. I got to meet Allen Ginsberg when I was younger. So before he passed away. So and I got to give him some of my poetry. So it was really amazing time. And he had, you know, he said he couldn't get back to me, but he promised he'd read it. So it's pretty amazing to meet somebody of that caliber. But yeah, the beats have been a big inspiration as well as Whitman. So.
Great. All right. Well, thank you again. Okay, so our last poet tonight is two-time winner of the Connecticut Book Award. Pegi Deitz Shea is the author of more than 450 published articles, essays, stories, and poems for adult readers, and award-winning books for young readers. She teaches in the UConn Creative Writing Program and the Institute for Children's Literature. She founded and directs the Poetry Rocks reading series in Vernon, Connecticut, where she is Poet Laureate. So let's bring up Pegi here. Hi, Pegi.
Hi, Barb. Thank you so much for organizing 4 Friday nights. That's amazing. My series Poetry Rocks only does it quarterly, and that's enough.
It's a lot of organization, but it's great. I'm so happy we did it. So, yeah, and thank you for participating. So.
Thank you. You're welcome. I do want to let everyone listening know that I believe it's the first time this year in Connecticut having an in-person outdoor poetry reading this Sunday in Vernon at Henry Park at 3:00, and you can get in touch with me for more information about that.
Excellent. I'm going to put something in the chat, so hopefully you'll get some extra people coming. So thank you.
Thank you. My first poem is in the anthology, Waking Up to the Earth, Connecticut Poets in a Time of Global Climate Crisis. And I've chosen the environment as a theme for my poetry reading tonight. Usually when I read the tough, heavy stuff first and then lighten up a little bit. So that's a bit of warning for the first 2 pieces. First poem is called Wasted Lives. Addis Ababa, March 11, 2017. Outside Ethiopia's capital, the Repi landfill, full of 50 years of refuse, home to thousands of poor displaced by high-rises, mounts and mounts until it cannot anymore, and the waste avalanches, eliminating scores of lives. Ambassadors of the African Union live in the pricey city, taking their fill of fashion, food, and fun. They waste time debating while they refuse to deal with the people who mount the garbage, foraging for treasures, say misplaced remotes or uneaten crusts. They call the place kosha, meaning dust, meaning lives disintegrate beneath these mounts, meaning sloughed skin cells fill surrounding huts, meaning material refuse abides with its own kind, human waste. Some blame the collapse on plastic waste. Others blame the people who placed their homes too close, who refused to live acceptable lives. The poor blame those whose pockets are filled. They claim ecological discrimination. They mount protests against economic injustice. They mount tiny caskets on their shoulders. This waste of life this way is not new. In 2000, the Payatas landfill landslide, the Java avalanche in 2005. Guatemala City places the whole country's trash higher in priority than the 7,000 lives who breathe noxious gases released by its refuse. Who fight the fires caused by methane, who refuse to conveniently die for what amounts to a pittance in taxes. Let's examine our lives. In the north end of Hartford, our mountain of waste is housed under a guise of grass. New York City placed its trash in Fresh Kills, Staten Island. China fills and sends barges with bulging amounts of waste to sea, where microfibers and plastic refuse replace lives in the marine food chain. Our seafood, our fill. Excuse me, need to wet my whistle a second. That poem is a sestina, and I find that, I don't write in form that often, but I find that the sestina and the pantoum and the villanelle that use a lot of repetition are really ideal forms for problems that just keep repeating, like gun violence. So I felt the sestina was perfect for that topic. The next poem, I'm not a children's book illustrator, I'm an author, but it's a concrete poem. I hope you can see that it's a marine animal, and I'm calling it a whale, so roll with me there. It's called Hooked on Plastic. MacArthur genius, oceanographer Edie Witter. I don't eat wild fish anymore. They're full of plastic. Recently in Norway, a whale washed up with 30 plastic bags and other plastic solids in its stomach. It starved. There's no room for food in a stomach full of plastic. There's no nutrition in 30 empty plastic bags. 30 plastic bags can't pass through the intestines of Earth's largest animals. Experts expect there will be more plastic than fish in the sea by 2050. As the seas rise and ocean currents slow, we shall drown in plastic. Wash up bloated, full of ourselves. Okay, that's it for the heavy stuff. Here comes a little hope. I learned a new word in December. I had trouble writing COVID poems. I wrote some COVID haiku. I wrote a poem for the town of Vernon and I basically interviewed children and teachers and parents about their experiences with the schools. But I kind of stumbled onto this poem, and it encapsulated so many issues this year, from COVID and the migrant crisis. And I just felt that everything kind of came together, and you'll see kind of vocabulary in this poem that touches on each of those. But the word I discovered was eruption. It's kind of like eruption, but it's IRR, option. And it has to do with a huge and sudden movement, often of animals, to a different place, and usually because they can't find food in their usually migratory spots that they go to. And in December, I learned that that happened in this forest that I go hiking in. So this poem is called December in the Year of Eruption. It's for Sherry Woods, a dear friend of mine who got very, very ill with COVID last year rather. Hiking in the Belding Forest, I am felled by the sight of trees, crisscrossed on the forest floor as if gods had forgotten their pickup sticks. Trucks hauled away other trees to where? Canopy gone, the onslaught of air is unbearable. The state prescribed the cuts to thin, mature oaks and destroy invasive spruce, to make room for native seedlings and pitch pine, to loosen the earth for worms and bugs, to woo back warblers, towhees, Baltimore orioles. But I see nothing new, only the dying and the dead. Yet deeper in the woods smells evergreen my nose. Burbles of waterfalls tether my terrier, and she greedily drinks. Trails diverge, flickers, invite me up a beaten path where boughs of ribbons dangle ornaments, shining spheres without spikes, glittery spirals twirling in a space of positive pressure. The corridor of green has ladders of light. My eyes climb to a rare red crossbill, inviting an eruption of migrants, calling, come, come, here, here, here is enough for the long, dark winter. And my last poem is called Charlotte's Egg Sack, and I actually wrote it about 25 years ago for my children. I've got a raspberry patch, and it gifts me with poems and things about nature, about the bees who chase me away at the wrong times of the day, and the buds, and you'll hear right here about the spider. Okay, so 25 years of submitting it and getting rejected. And finally, last year, I submitted it to a competition, and it is the winner of the Prouty Memorial Award given by the Poetry Society of Alabama. So there's a little lesson about never giving up on a work that you really, really believe in. Charlotte's Egg Sack. Only when the first raspberries purpled and I probed the prickers to reach them did I see the pale orb. A mother spider, exhausted, invisible, had laid her egg sac in the elbow of stem and branch, wrapped threads around a leaf above to canopy her cradle. My first instinct, extinguish! 500 new spiders crawling into my home and laying their own egg sacs. The exponential was exorbitant. As I clipped the stem, translucent movement startled me. Babies the size of raspberry seeds were creeping through a pinhole and poking spinnerets into first air the way a toddler dabs at squash. I called my children, pajamaed, barefoot. They awed at the sight. Then together we carried the newborn into the woods. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Beautiful. I love that last poem. It's just.
Oh, thanks. It hung in there, right? Just like that mother spider.
Not only the perseverance of it, but also just the idea of what children are amazed by, and just what nature always reveals such mysteries to them. So beautiful poem. Mm-hmm. I love the thing about the whale poem, the concrete poem, was that concrete poems are so playful by nature because of their shapes, and yet the content was so amazingly devastating. So beautiful work. Beautiful.
Thank you very much.
Well, I'm going to bring everybody back up on screen here. Let's see. I'm not sure we still have Adam. Adam, are you there? Oh, here he comes. Yep. There you go. Now, I don't think we haven't received any questions from the audience. So any of you have a question you'd like to ask the poets altogether or a single poet in the group?
I have a question for Joan. Kind of teacher to teacher, I find that my teacher head is so different from my writer head, and I can't do both at once. And you know how you always get this advice to write every day and everything, but I can't write on teaching days. My head just doesn't work that way. So how do you manage to do that?
I don't necessarily write every day, but I'm kind of like militant about my schedule. So I am asleep by 8:30 or 9 o'clock, 7 days a week. I get up between 4 and 4:30 in the morning, even on weekends. And that's when I write, because I also have kids at home. So the weekends sometimes aren't any easier to write than weekdays. So I like that, like 4:30 to 6:30 a.m. time frame. And it's also, I'm a morning person anyway. So that's when I write. But, I heard someone say the other day that they use the Notes app on their phone. Like if you have an iPhone, there's a Notes app. So, if an idea comes to me during the workday, like as soon as the bell rings, I just put the idea into the Notes app and then I can go back to it later. Mm-hmm. But I totally get that writer brain is different from teacher brain, because as teachers, it's giving all of the time. And I try to open myself, even as I'm working, though, to opportunities and possibilities for poems. And sometimes they come. I've written a few poems about experiences that I've had as a teacher. But that's a great question. I don't write every day. On days when, I mean, my goal National Poetry Month is always to write a poem every day, and I always fail because I don't think that we can be artful every single day. I mean, on days when I don't write, I edit or I submit, you know, or I read. So.
I did a conference with Patricia Smith one time, and she said she writes 10 pages a day. Now, we all went, what? But she said a lot of it is just notes, research, you know, for possible future poems. But she said she makes herself produce work every day, whether it's a poem or prose or notes. So, you know, as long as you're tending to your craft, it all counts. Oh, great. Well, we've run over a little bit on time. I appreciate the audience for staying with us a few extra minutes. Thank you, everybody. Oh my gosh, this was another amazing night. Such diversity, such great voices, and thanks for giving us your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well,
It's nice to meet all of you.
Yes.
Yes,
Thank you.
nice.
And I hope everyone will join us next week. We have one last National Poetry Month session, and we have 5 more poet laureates that are going to be joining us. So hope to see you then. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Right.